Story 1. On a dark and gloomy night, when the stars were hidden behind thick clouds, a lonely traveler named Edward got lost in a mystical forest. This forest was surrounded by secrets and was famous for its dangers, but Edward was a brave and desperate explorer who was always eager to unravel mystical mysteries. Upon entering the forest, Edward realized that something was not right here. Silent rustles and eerie sounds haunted him at every turn, and terrifying mutant shadows glided among the trees. But he was sure that his knowledge of ancient rituals and spells would help him survive. As if a sinister force was pulling him deeper, Edward kept walking, not noticing that the forest was changing before his eyes. The trees began to take on strange shapes, and the surrounding scenery became nightmarish. It seemed to him that he was in a parallel world where demons and mutants ruled. Suddenly he saw a light in the distance and went in its direction, but the light led him to an ancient ruined temple, where a dark ritual was taking place. Edward froze in fear, trying not to attract attention, but it was too late. The mutants noticed his presence and came at him from all sides. Edward remembered his fighting skills, which had helped him in other dangerous places, and began to fight the mutants, but their power was overwhelming, and he became desperate. He realized that alone could not cope with them all, and he needed help. And then mysterious figures appeared from behind the trees, ancient shamans who wielded the magic of this mystical forest. They rescued Edward from the mutants and brought him to their abode to learn of his intentions. Edward told them of his desire to unravel the mysteries of the mystical forest and learn the ancient rituals. The shamans looked at him with distrust, but saw in him a deep desire for truth and knowledge. They decided to help him, but warned him that the mystical forest does not forgive frivolity and immodesty. Thus began his training in magical arts and ancient rituals. Edward learned that the forest was a sacred place for the ancient inhabitants, where they held rituals, glorifying their gods and summoning magical powers. Every day he learned more and more, but he sensed that something was wrong. The shamans kept many secrets from him, warning him of the consequences if he delved too deeply into this world of magic and demons. One day, while exploring the ruins of an ancient temple, he discovered an ancient scroll with a sealed spell. Unable to contain his interest, Edward decided to uncover its secret. He didn't know that the scroll contained an evil spell that awakened demonic power. The demon burst from the scroll and turned on Edward with an eerie shriek. It was a creature of madness and destruction. Edward tried to pull the demon back into the scroll, but its power was too great. The demon began to destroy everything around it, devouring the ancient ruins with fire and fury. Edward realized that he had to stop this terrible entity before it left the mystical forest and brought doom to the world of the living. Gathering his last strength, Edward entered the battle with the demon. He used all his knowledge and skills to confront this terrible creature. The battle was cruel and merciless, but he did not give up, realizing that the responsibility for this nightmare lay on his shoulders. The last of his strength was leaving him, and he felt that he was close to defeat. But suddenly a light figure appeared from behind the trees, the spirit of the ancient guardians of the mystical forest. The spirit came to Edward's aid and together with him entered into battle with the demon. In this battle, the forces of good and evil clashed, and the decisive moment came. In the end, the forces of the mystical forest outweighed and the demon was defeated. The demon's magical essence was returned to the scroll, where it remained forever sealed. Edward found himself back in the shaman's abode. He felt that he had become a different person. His training in the mystical forest had made him wiser and stronger. He realized that the world of magic and mystery was not for the faint of heart, and he realized that the dangers of this world could be devastating. The shamans blessed him and released him from the forest, warning him not to return. Edward agreed, realizing that he was now responsible for what had happened and must not allow the mystical forest to bring terror to the world again. Thus ended his horror story of the mystical forest, mutants, demons, and ancient rituals. Edward returned to his world, but his heart remained imprisoned by the mysterious riddles of this place where the forces of good and evil are forever battling for supremacy. Story 2. Between the villages, deep in the forest, there was an ancient piece of land that was famous for its mystical secrets. There were tales of ancient shaman spirits dwelling among the centuries-old trees, of sinister mutants spawned by the dark forces of nature, of demons imprisoned in caves deep in the forest. But few knew that these tales were true. One gloomy fall evening, Richard, a young and desperate researcher of mystical phenomena, decided to try his luck and go into the forest to uncover its secrets. He was sure that he would find a scientific explanation for everything it says, but his ambition hid the unshakable fear that gripped him as he stepped into the dark paths of the ancient forest. The path through the dense maze of trees was confusing, and with each step Richard felt the forest change, transporting him to another reality. Indistinct rustles and magical glowing moths surrounded him on all sides. Richard felt that he was not alone, that the eyes of strange creatures were watching him from the darkness. Accidentally lost, Richard became more and more disoriented, and his heart began to beat faster. Then he noticed an inconspicuous path and decided to follow it, hoping to find a way out of this lost forest. With each step the path became darker and more mysterious. Soon Richard noticed that the trees were sinking deeper and deeper into darkness, and he found himself in a world that seemed completely unreal to him. Strange lights flickered among the trees, and shadows began to take on an ominous shape. There were eerie shrieks and rustles from the bushes. The whole forest seemed to come alive and began to affect Richard with hostility, as if it wanted to expel him from its sacred secrets. But Richard did not give up. He continued onward, determined to unravel the mystical riddles of the forest. As the night grew darker and darker, strange figures shimmering in the moonlight appeared in the distance. As Richard approached, he saw an ancient shaman dressed in a fringe of trees and wrapped in vines. The shaman towered above the ground like a pillar between the world of the living and the world of the dead. He raised his hand and spoke mysterious words in an ancient language. Richard realized that the shaman possessed magic, and his skin was covered with cold sweat. He didn't know what to do and was about to flee when his gaze fell on a human figure that had turned into a mutant. The creature looked monstrous, its body and face distorted as if it was in terrible agony. However, terror prevented Richard from running away. The shaman intercepted his gaze and quietly said, "You are lost among the sacred lands. Here are secrets that only the chosen ones can access. You thirst for the truth, and it will be dear to you. Learn my magic, and you will know the truth of the past, present, and future." Richard, despite his fear, decided to try to learn the secrets of the place. He agreed to the test the shaman proposed and approached him. Thus began a ritual that transported Richard to another world. He found himself in the spirit world, where he met the ghosts of the ancient inhabitants of the forest. Each ghost carried its own secrets and knowledge, which formed the legends of the mystical forest. They told of the gruesome sacrifices that the ancient cults performed to glorify their gods. They told the sad stories of those who had strayed into the forest and fallen prey to its dark forces. With each new ghost, Richard delved deeper and deeper into the depths of the mystical forest. But among the glittering spirits he noticed one, a demon with burning eyes. It was the spawn of absolute evil, long ago sworn to destroy all living things. The demon turned its gaze on Richard and whispered, "You dare invade my domain, mortal. Go back to where you came from and leave these lands to me." Richard was horrified, but he realized that the mystical forest held not only evil, but also wisdom that could help people. He gathered courage and asked, "How can I leave this forest and never come back here again?" The demon was silent for a moment, then spoke, "You can leave if you pass the test I will offer you. The lure of a multitude of knowledge and power may outsmart your mind, but if you pass it flawlessly, I will let you go." Richard was ready for this test. He realized that knowledge without wisdom could lead to ruin. He refused the magical power offered by the demon and chose the wisdom offered by the legendary shaman. Upon returning to the shaman, Richard realized he had the answers to his questions. The shaman told him that the mystical forest cannot be explored for power and might. It is a sacred place where the world of the living and the world of the dead converge. When Richard left the forest, he became a different person. He realized that the world of mystical forces and spiritual phenomena must be respected and appreciated, lest he awaken the evil that slumbers in the depths of the forest. He has since gone on to warn others that the mystical forest cannot be conquered, and that those who choose to learn its secrets must be prepared to be tested and held accountable for their actions. The mystic forest remains a world of mystery, haunted by ghosts, mutants, and demons, but Richard no longer yearns to know everything about it. He now knows that the secrets of this forest are sacred and beyond the reach of those who seek only power and strength.